and welcome to our S&B Weekly, the best worst book club. I'm Beck.
And I'm Stephanie.
We are sisters-in-law who have spent too much time on Book Talk and discuss what they've been reading every month, as well as various topics that we share interest in.
Disclaimer, we both read books that have some or all adult topics. And if you are either, one, not an adult, or two, uncomfortable with the thought of either of us talking about adult themes, now would probably be the time to stop listening.
So I think today we're going to go over a little bit about ourselves. That way we can introduce what we're about, what we like to read, what got us into reading, as well as what we've been reading for the month of March. And I think that'll probably be a template of what we're going to go moving forward. So Stephanie, let's start with you. I absolutely hate the whole tell me about yourself thing, but tell me a little bit about yourself.
I'm Stephanie, and I like to read dark romance and horror. Those are my current go-tos right now. I recently got back into reading. I was in a reading slump for a really long time. I didn't do it. And I loved reading when I was younger, and I just didn't for the longest time. And I kind of found my way to Book Talk through TikTok through you, because you were always talking about TikTok and showing me these videos, and I'm like, all right, I'll do it. And then I got on Book Talk, and I'm like, what is this? Like, this is, and then you started telling me about books, and then I got right back into it. So thank you, Beck. For that,
absolutely.
I missed it.
Yeah, me too. I think TikTok actually is like a very helpful tool for like stumbling back into reading. What genres do you like? Have you always gone for like dark romance or like?
No, dark romance is a new one. I always liked horror, and I liked some like dystopian kind of things. Back in the day, Brave New World, I was very into that. I bought, and we've talked about this before, I bought House of Leaves years ago when I was like way younger, and I still have yet to read that. But I've always liked kind of weird and horror for sure. The dark romance, I just got introduced to that. It's one of the books I'll be talking about today. Kind of goes into that, how I was introduced into that genre recently, and I loved every minute of it. So yeah, I'm dark romance is a new one, but horror I've always loved. I mean, I've always loved horror movies, so the books I love them as well. Horror I've always kind of been into, very much so. I like the horror movies and all that, but the dark romance is new, and I love it.
Well, it definitely ties that like horror element into the romance genre, as far as like, sometimes scary things happen, or like
exactly, like
not so cool things.
Yeah, and it's not too like, well, in my opinion, it's not too much. I know there's like, I think it's maybe it's like horror erotica, and that's supposed to be like way off the deep end.
Yeah,
I'm not there. I mean, the stuff I read is definitely not. I mean, it's not Cinderella. But it's not quite to that. It's like the in between. It's a nice little.
but it's not
medium.
like that. What is that lady on TikTok that has like the books that require jail time? It's not on that level.
Not yet.
I mean, some of them you do read, but it's not like.
It could be worse.
It could be worse. Yes.
There you go. Yeah.
So in the last year or so, do you have like a top 5 books that you've read that you would recommend to like?
Yeah, well, like I said, I just started reading again towards the end of last year.
Mm-hmm.
So my list isn't super long or extensive or anything yet, but I have been going through books like crazy this year.
Yeah.
So for last year though, and I read Hunting Adeline this year, but I started Haunting Adeline last year. And it's by H.D. Carlton, and this one got like introduced me into the dark romance genre. So this is kind of, and it was a good one for me, because it might not be for like a typical person who's first getting into dark romance, because it is pretty dark, but considering I enjoy horror and stuff, it was a good one to introduce me into it. Like, can I handle this? Is this going to be too much for me? Whatever. huge on Book Talk. It was everywhere. It still is. You still see it on Book Talk once in
Oh
a
yeah, you
while.
sent me something recently on it,
Yeah,
which
I
is
did.
funny.
It
Yeah.
was funny. So basically, it's the character Adeline. She is being stalked, and I say that she loves to hate it because being stalked is obviously a terrifying and scary thing, and she is terrified, but it exhilarates her. So it's like she hates it and loves it at the same time.
Hmm.
So like I said, she loves to hate it, and the thrill of everything is it's disturbing, but it's exhilarating at the same time. And it's funny when you read this book because you go through like everything she's thinking, and she'll kind of like allude to the fact that she does kind of enjoy it a little bit, and but no, this is
And then
horrible.
she
So
has like weird feelings about actually enjoying it. Yeah.
yeah, it's this very back and forth. Like she doesn't want to enjoy it, but she can't help it. So
Right.
and I like things that make people feel uncomfortable. I don't know. I loved reading this book, and it's the second one especially is very dark. Especially in the beginning, it goes, yeah, it's a lot. It may be a lot. Check trigger warnings and all that if you want to read it. But I did like it. I really liked both of them. Personally, I like the first one better. The second one is a little hard to get through. But I loved their relationship, and it's fiction, and that's why. Because if this was real life, it would not be good
Absolutely fucking not. Yeah.
for anyone. It'd be terrible. But it's not real world, so it's okay. So
Yeah.
I enjoyed reading it. If this was like a based on a true story thing, the character Zaid would be a horrible man, and Adeline would need all the therapy, but it's not. It's fake, so it's okay. And I did enjoy reading it. I was entertained the whole time. I wanted to know what was going to happen next because there is spice and there's a lot of it, but there is a plot as well, and that's important. Like, I mean, if I want to read a book that's strictly spice, that's fine, but I like a
Yeah,
little bit of
absolutely.
plot to keep me interested, and what's going on, and to like the characters, feel, some kind of attachment to them.
Yeah.
So yeah. So anyways, so those two I did like a lot. And they're always going to have a soft spot with me because they introduced me into that genre. So, and I think you told me about it as well.
I think yeah, because we read it about the same time.
Hmm.
And I think it was again one of those like book talk recommendations that like
Yeah.
is kind of out there and
Well,
like
you like
it's
see the people reading it and they look so like,
oh
I
yeah,
don't
they
know.
always have like the biggest reaction or whatever. Um
Yeah.
and it is kind of on that line of like morbid curiosity where it's like, well, it can't be that bad. I have to read this now
Oh
type
God.
of situation. It does kind of play into that like situation of like you kind of feel what she's feeling it because like I should not like this. This is
Right.
weird, but also I have this
Yeah.
like weird morbid like I don't know, I kind of like this
Yeah.
kind of situation. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. So yeah, we both read this book. It's
Hmm.
not on my top 5, but that doesn't mean that it's not a great book. It's just I'll get into this later, but like a lot of like romance books aren't going to make my top 5 just because. So is that one, two, and now you're on to the next one?
Yeah. So,
Okay.
the next one I'm going to talk about is This Thing Between Us by Gus Moreno. It's really not horror. It
Mhm.
has that element to it for sure, but I think it's more of like a mystery thriller type vibe. It does have horror elements, though, I will say that.
Mhm.
But the story centers around Vera and Thiago, and Thiago's married to Vera, and Vera purchases what's called an Itza, which is pretty much what we know as an Alexa. All
Mm.
right, so they are no strangers to things happening in their home that are unexplained. There's noises, scratching in the walls, sleepwalking, but things that have never really happened before they were together. And then just to get their mind off of everything, because it's been so crazy in their home, she like buys this thing. She thinks it'll be fun. Like, look, I have this little, it's funny. And
Haha. Yeah.
it's not. So things get worse once this Itza thing is brought into the home. And Vera ends up being killed. And then
Oh.
Thiago goes into this downward spiral. He's just, I mean, he's losing it. The things in the house are actually getting worse after she is killed. And he lives in Chicago, like big bustling city. He was well known. So was his wife. It's just crazy. And he's like, I need to get away. Like I'm losing it. So he moves far, far away in a cabin in secluded area of Colorado. And, you know, he does it to get away from everything, but it follows him. And so it's really crazy. Like he's alone in this cabin, and just to watch, I mean, his grief, his loneliness, his emptiness, he's slowly falling apart. And it's sad,
Mm.
but the way that this author was able to like convey those feelings into this character, it amazed me. And it's only 272 pages. It is a short read, and it was packed with so much feeling and just an amazing story. And it's definitely not like, it's one of those ones where after you're just like, oh my God, like let me go watch something happy or read something happy. Because
Let me go watch SpongeBob for a second.
Yeah, let me go.
Yeah.
Seriously, but it's so good. And the fact that like, I mean, so much packed into only 272 pages. Like I said, I looked at the exact page number to know, because it's just amazing how good it was in that short amount of time. Loved it. I don't really want to say too much because I can give stuff away, and I don't want to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, that's all I could really say about it. But incredible read. I absolutely loved it.
It was a short book. Did it go
Mhm.
by quickly? Like, did you like read it in one sitting, or was it something that you were able to like enjoy
No,
over sessions?
I spread it out over I think 3 days. So I finished it kind of quick. It's a lot to take in because so much happens in such a short amount of time. Now at the same time, I will say it's not sloppy or rushed or anything like that. It's just
Yeah.
you're reading it, and it's just so much to take in. And like you read a chapter and you're like, wow, like just so much has
Oh,
happened.
yeah.
I spread it out over 3 days. I read before bed, and you know, some days I'm more tired than others. So sometimes I'm like, I just read a little bit, go to bed. But I remember I spread that out over 3 days. You could definitely finish it in one sitting. When it's a shorter book, I tend to try to spread it out a little more, you know,
Yeah.
to enjoy it a little bit longer.
Savor it.
Instead of it, I look over at, you know, my clock and it's 3 a.m. and I'm like, oh wow,
Oh.
I should probably sleep. So like,
Oops.
yeah, so I try to spread it out over a couple days, but it was really good. But you could finish it in a day easy, if you wanted to. But I liked that I spread it out.
Yeah.
Kind of made it more enjoyable for me.
Well, and it gives you a little bit of a breather too, as far as like content wise.
One of the books I'm gonna, I don't know if you'll be surprised by this. I put Haunted on there.
I am surprised, actually.
Chuck Palahniuk. You recommended it. You gave it to me, so thank
Yeah.
you.
It was
the
on
gift.
my shelf for a very long time, and it needed to go away.
Yeah, and you were like, you like jacked up things. Try this, and I was like, yes. And it was a wild book. But that's why I liked it. It was a ride. Like from beginning to end, it's just wild. And there is stuff that will make you laugh, and there's stuff that will make you gag. And
I think
so
that's very his style too is very much like comedic relief. This really weird, messed up thing happens,
Mhm.
and then comedic relief kind of situation. Like you go back and forth, so it doesn't feel like too heavy, but then like
It's
there's
very
some stuff in there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But I like that he can do that. Like, because I think that is hard for people to do. If I'm reading a book and actually laugh out loud, like, you know, I'll do the like whole like once in a while. But if I'm like, haha, like LOL, laugh out loud for real, like that's pretty good, because it takes a lot for me to laugh out loud while reading.
Oh,
I'll
me too.
smile,
Yeah.
and I'll do the occasional like nose laugh. Yeah, exactly. HEH. No, but to like ha ha ha, like, and I did, like I laughed, and I was also like, oh god, like look of disgust on my face, and my husband would look over like, what are you reading? And I'm like, don't worry about it. But such a good book. I can't remember how many authors was it that went there.
I think
to
it was
the retreat.
9.
Yeah, they go to this retreat, and they know they're gonna have, you know, a place to stay and this and that, but they have to leave behind pretty much their lives. I mean, any distractions, whether it be, you know, you're not going to talk to anybody, you got to leave the world behind. No TV, no cell phones. You're going to get rid of all your possessions. You're just going to go with 100%. Well, you could bring one thing. Right? That was the thing, right? You can bring
but it's gotta
one
be
thing,
like
but it can't be like a cell
a
phone.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So they go, and they can't leave. So they get there, and the isolation is a lot. It's a bit much. And there's like the supplies are there, but they are limited. And everyone kind of starts to go a little crazy. The whole point of this thing was to be able to write this masterpiece. God, it's so hard to even explain this book. And well, how would you? I'm trying to think of how to describe it because it's so hard to explain. It's just so much
So
going
it's
on.
like a writer's
Short
retreat.
stories.
Yeah. And you get to read what the like writers came up with in between the actual story.
Mm-hmm.
Type of situation. So like you get to read what these people that are going crazy because they're in like confined space with all these other people, you get to read what they decided is going to be their masterpiece. And some of them, I would absolutely agree, are masterpieces.
Yeah, some.
So,
But
there are some that really did freak me out, but like again, without spoilers, like
yeah, and the whole time, like you're not only reading these stories, there's also just the descent into madness within this home that they're in going on at the same time. So I think that's why I would just call it a ride because it's just insane. I mean, between the stories and what they're going through, and it is wild. And it is,
yeah.
I loved it. I loved it. I was entertained every second. Even if it was completely disgusting, I was entertained. So definitely has horror element.
Yeah.
Check your trigger warnings. There is some content, but it was I did
I
did
say this was
enjoy it.
before trigger warnings though that he wrote this, but like
Yeah,
for
well, I
sure
think you could like
there's gonna be something out there on the internet.
like
The internet is
Google
vast
it
and-
or something. Yeah, like I mean honestly, if it's horror, don't read it if you don't like gross. I mean it's gross. It's gross.
It
There's
is.
gross things. So don't read it
Yes.
if you don't like gross
Thanks.
things.
Yeah.
The only way I can describe it. It's just because I don't want to give anything away because there is some surprises in there, you know?
Yeah, well, I had the hardest time because obviously, and then you told me that you're going to read it, or like you told me that you were reading it, and like I had to sit there with my hand closed together until you got to the point that I thought was the grossest, and I apologized because like
You sat away,
You took-
twiddling your thumb.
you took this book from my home, and like, oh.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, we read a lot of. I mean, Womb was.
Oh yeah.
But and this is totally off topic, but Dead Inside made me realize like I am not. I was like, I read all these books and people say they're so bad, and then I read that book and I'm like, okay, that's it. That's where
it.
I draw the line. There's a line that needs that. That's it.
If this book is like a 10, I can hang around like 7.
Yeah, I finished it, which a lot of people don't. I don't know why. I'm like, it's one of those books where you're like, well, it's not going to get any worse, and then it does, and then you're like, well, it can't possibly get worse, and then it does.
Then you check the rest of the pages, you're like, oh.
It's so bad. It's so disgusting. Yeah, never again. But oh my God, he wrote another book that I do want to read, but supposedly it's not as bad. So I don't know what I'm gonna do. I do want to read the other one a lot.
Next month that'll pop up.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
Probably not on my favorites though. Anyways, so
Well,
I'm getting
no.
off topic, but
It's okay.
But Haunted, I loved it. It was just I've never read a book like it ever. I love that about it. Whenever something is like very different, I
Yeah.
appreciate that,
I think that will come through on my list too, is because like I love like unique storytelling for sure, and I feel like a lot of Chuck Palahniuk's books are very unique, and I love the way he tells his stories, or like his writing style is just so chef's kiss. You can't see me, but chef.
Yes, the Italian
Yeah.
hand. Yes.
Have you read many of his books, or is that the
I've
first one
read
that you?
No, that's not the first one. I've read Survivor, I've read Choke, I've read Fight Club.
Well, who hasn't read Fight Club?
Yeah, Fight Club, of course. But I read Survivor and Choke, and I think that's it. And then this one now, and then Fight Club. So 4. I know he has so many. I have to like dive into. I have to dive. So yeah, Haunted. Okay. Haunted's on my list. Funny.
That's so good though, because like when I sent it with you, I was so like, oh no, she's gonna hate it.
No,
And
I loved it. I loved it.
She's gonna think I'm weird, but
it took me a minute to read. I don't know if you noticed how long it took me, but it's just the subject matter. I'm like, I need a break.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like, you have to absorb his writing. Like it's not just like mindless reading with him at all.
No.
It's not. And I nothing against that. I like plenty of mindless reading, but he is like very far from that. So for me, I had to take like one chunk at a time, really like sit on it, digest it, what just happened, okay, cool, and then read the next. So it did take me a while to get through it, but I wanted to understand and enjoy it. And like I said, he's not a mindless. His writing is not mindless reading. You got to think. So it is really good though. Excellent book. So I loved it. But anyways, right now I'm reading. I am obsessed, and you know this, the Devil's Night series. Oh my god. So it's dark romance. There's 6 books in all, 2 novellas, 4 novels. I'm reading the last. I'm on book 5. So I have one more after this, and the last one is a novella. So I don't know what that's going to be about. I do not like spoilers. I don't peek. I have loved this stupid series. So it's not stupid. It's just one of those things where it's very like, do you ever like watch a show and like, you're like, oh my God, so dumb. But then you watch the next one and then you watch the next one. And then I need to know what happens. And like the spice is fantastic. The plot is very okay. But everyone's like, they're all perfect looking and rich. And that does get on my nerves. But it's, she does write it well, I will say. And they're masked men.
Oh,
I have
a thing.
Yeah, I know. I have a thing. And that's TikTok's fault. TikTok has taught me brought me back to reading and has opened my eyes to some things I didn't realize. I think it's because it's like my horror movie obsession. So I was really young, like that the thrill. So I don't know.
Well, your mom literally has a poster of
The Exorcist.
Yeah, in her 70s room. So like,
yeah. So my mom, I love my mom, but she never like cared.
Had a filter?
Well, she didn't care what I watched. Like I remember being 11 years old, and me and my friend Lisa Arnett. I remember this like it was yesterday. We would go. So on Friday nights we'd get pizza, and if she spent the night, we would go to like Blockbuster or whatever. And my brothers would pick out a video game to play.
Yep.
And I would pick out a movie. And almost every time I was getting Faces of Death. And my mom's like, sure, honey, that's fine. I'm 11, 12.
That's fine.
This is like, Mom will let you watch this? I'm like, yeah, she don't care. And she didn't, sure didn't. And I would watch, I was watching like The Lost Boys when I was like 8. And that one's really very mild. But some kids though.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. And then that time, you watch it now and you're like, oh, but you got to understand. This was a long time ago. It was the 80s, 90s, So like my mom really didn't give didn't care what we watched. You can watch anything you want. You want to watch Faces of Death? Sure. And I think it takes you one of two ways where you have this like, you're either scared of everything or you have this like unhealthy like obsession. And me and Lisa, the girl, we both kind of have this like unhealthy obsession with like horror and all things that. So, but the mask thing was very recent. I don't know. That just came out of nowhere. I was like, I kind of like this. It's kind of nice. And then I saw the series and 4 Masked Men. I was like, add to cart. Like
Instant.
They're not bad books. They're good. They're interesting. You want to know what's going to happen. You have your favorite of the 4 that, you think you hate them all until you read their story and you're kind of like, oh, okay. And then you start kind of warming up to him, especially this guy, Damon. He is the worst, but you read his book and you're like,
I could tell by the name.
Yeah. So it's Mike and Michael.
Mike?
And then Michael, Kai, who I like Kai, and Damon and Will. That's their names. And Damon's like the worst of all of them. But when you read his story, you're kind of like, oh, okay.
Oh, like Shane in Stardew Valley.
Yes. Yes. But Damon has gone through so much worse. But yes. Very much like Shane in Stardew. Oh, Shane. Like, why is he so mean to me? And then cutscenes and you're like, wait, no.
Oh no, go back.
No. Oh, Stardew! I haven't played that in so long. Oh, good.
It's so good.
Yeah. So by that's I'll leave it at those for now. But really do like the Devil's Night series. I have, like I said, I'm halfway done with the 4th book, and he's a big boy. He's almost 800 pages. I think he's like maybe 750, between 750 and 800. He's big. So I'm getting through that one. Big boy. Yes, and this is Will's story, which I am liking. I think this might be my favorite one so far. I really like it so far. So we'll see. But yeah, he thick.
Yeah. I guess it should be mentioned too. Like, do you usually pick up like physical books, electronic, like Kindle, or like bookstore, library?
Physical.
physical.
I need to hold him.
I need to hold it.
I like having it. I've tried, I had a Kindle a long time ago and I
Mhm.
never used it. There's something about, and I'm not, a lot of people like physical books because they tab them. I guess you could do that with your Kindle now too, but
You sure can.
I don't do any of that. I just like holding it and having it. I don't know.
It's like a creature comfort situation.
It is. It's like my blankie. No, I need it to, I don't know. I just like having them. I don't
And
know. It's weird because there's really no reason to like it more than like a Kindle, but I do. And I like the cover art, which I know is like kind of on a, I don't know. I don't have as many as you. You have like a library. So if you had if you bought every book you read, you would just be buried
oh
in
yeah,
books.
that is why I got a Kindle in the first place, because like
Yeah.
my bookshelves are like, I don't mean like, I've been collecting books since like, well, I was like 15 or 16 when I started buying books like myself. So like I've just kept them. Like I kept my textbooks too from college, and like I don't need those, but like I have such like a I need to have thing that
Mhm.
getting a Kindle was just an easier choice, because I was, full to the brim kind of thing.
And you started giving them to me, which
Well,
I mean, I'm all for.
yeah, absolutely. Any like anything you see, you can like, because at this point I don't know, they're just sitting around collecting dust, and I feel like if like someone like you were to take them, at least they would get like, I don't know, love
A
again or
good home.
something. Yeah.
To a good home. Yes. Yes. I now I'm not at your point. I don't have as many as you. So I might get to a point where I will keep my favorite and I will never like
Yeah.
I'll never throw a book away. I will not. Like I will give it away. I will figure it out. I won't throw them away because they're just can't do that. But I like having physical books. But we'll see. If we're still doing this another 5 years, like
Yeah,
maybe
we might
not.
have to change it up a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, as far as like, I don't want to get too much into it, because like, it might go on and on, but like, do you have
Yeah.
like a to be read list, or like, how do you keep
I
track of that? Has Book Talk
oh God.
hindered that
Book
in any way, influenced that? Like,
Yeah, I had some stuff on so I use Goodreads app to track everything I'm reading, what I've read, and what I want to read. And okay, I'll give you the top ones that I want to
yeah.
read because I'm not going to go through my
Oh,
5,000 books I've
absolutely.
added
Yeah.
because Book Talk, it'll give you like a little taste and I'm like add. So it's horrible. I want to read Brother by Anaya Alborn, and that is a horror. It's supposed to be pretty intense, so we'll see. I want to read Speed. You read that, right?
Yes.
And I want to read that one too. I really do.
I
And I know
did
you read
like that
it.
one. Yes.
Okay. I want to read What Moves the Dead.
Oh my God.
Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke, and that is by Eric LaRocca. Bought Nothing But Blackened Teeth by Cassandra Kah, I think that's how you say it. I want to read that one.
That's also on my list.
That's a horror, I believe.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think you sent it to me. Kiss of Death.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
The
and
God
it's
of Death.
a dark gods and monsters fantasy romance. Yes,
Yes.
that one too. So that's what I got. That's so far. I won't get into depth of because we'll talk about them eventually when I get to them.
Absolutely.
So we'll do it. So I do have my TBR, and I try not to buy books till I need them. I have a few on my shelf that I do need, like All But Blackened Teeth, and then the one you gave me, John Dies at the End. I want to read that, and then Paladin's Grace, which I started and then it's been interrupted. I was into it. I'm gonna start it over when I read my one I'm reading now, just to get the full effect because I did like it. What I got through so far, it was really good. So
Yes.
yes.
Well,
So
that's
yeah, and John Dies at the End, and yeah, I'll probably be reading Paladin's Grace next, and then All But Blackened Teeth, and then John Dies at the End.
I will say that the movie, this is like one of the rare instances that the movie is better than the book, as far as like John Dies at the end. So
Okay.
if you want to skip reading it and just watch the movie,
No, I'm gonna read it because you gave it to me. It's special.
it's special.
I'm looking at it right now. No. Okay. Okay, enough about me. That took longer than I'm sorry, I get off topic
No.
and blah blah blah. So now we're gonna talk about you. So what genre do you typically like to read?
So I'm definitely more of like a fantasy type person, and I always have. Like the first books I've ever read were elves and hobbits and fairies and all those sorts of things. So I think I'm a little lighter on my genres as far as that goes, but I certainly do read. Obviously, I read horror books too. Like we've read the same books, so like obviously I read them too. I think it's because I like to like pepper my horror with like, oh, fantasy elf, in the forest type of situation. But like the horror that I tend to go for is more like paranormal and not like the gruesome type anymore. Like I used to like obviously Chuck Palahniuk is very
Yep.
like gross.
Yeah.
But I'm more into like the like House of Leaves horror, the Haunting of Hill House horror type
Okay.
of thing. But and I do like my entire Kindle library. This is why I got a Kindle is because I knew that I was going to get Kindle Unlimited, and I knew that there was a lot of adult romance books on there.
Mhm.
And I don't think I care so much anymore. I got the Kindle like 6 months ago, but like it was definitely one of those things where I didn't want like a half naked man just hanging out on my shelf, my
Right.
bookshelf.
I
So
know the covers sometimes.
I know. There's
Ah,
like you can order, I want to say like book cover, like fabric book covers for those situations, but like I don't know. A
yeah.
Kindle was just easier because I knew I was going to read a lot of them.
Yeah, I'm glad none of mine have those covers, and I'm kind of happy because I feel like that's so cheesy.
It is.
Oh.
And like the same thing happens on like TikTok too, is like you'll get to a thirst trap of a dude like without a shirt on, and it's like I feel cringy watch, so I'm just gonna skip it. So it ends
Yeah.
up like I don't get a whole lot of those. But
No, I
like
kind
I'm
of
not
like those.
against them.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
kind of like the fact that like we're at a point now where it's not just women have to be all out showing everything in the open. Like when I see it, I mean it's cringy, but I'm like, you know what? Good.
Yeah, like the fact
You
that
know?
women do have like sexual preferences or like sexual, wants is very
Yeah,
nice to like have out in the open nowadays.
for sure.
I do remember like another reason why I was very like coveted about my romance reading is because like one of my older sisters does read. My mom calls them kissy books. So like the fact that she got so much like crap for it, like that
Right.
definitely in my head is like, oh, like I think doing. But like now I'm just like, absolutely.
Give me all of them.
Give me all of the horrible, terrible, like white shoes, dark romance, all of these fun mafia, whatever. I'll read it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nice. That's good because it's fun.
It is fun, and,
Really
and it's in good fun, and it's just like, and I
Right,
think that's
right.
probably why they don't end up on my top 5 list is because they are just kind of like fun, and you just read through
Yeah,
them, and it's not like anything that has like deep content, but they're
right,
fun.
right. Yeah, they are. So, in the last year or so, what are your top 5 books and why? What made them stand out? Because I know you've read a lot. So, what made these ones stand out for you?
So, I actually have a spreadsheet. I swear to God, I'm not neurotic, but I guess I might be.
Eh,
But I started reading, June of last year, and actually the first one that's on my list is what got me into reading again, because like you, I definitely went through like a drought of not picking up books. Like I've always had them. It's just like setting aside the time or enjoying myself doing it.
Right.
But I saw my very first one is Paladin's Grace, which I loaned
Oh,
to you. I
yes.
saw it on TikTok.
Mhm.
And what got me was that the lady that was explaining it was like, these are not your typical like 18-year-old, perfect bodied, like perfect
Yes.
people romance. It's definitely like I'll just get into it. It's so Paladin's Grace is about this paladin that I'm not entirely sure how well versed people are with what a paladin is, but a paladin is basically like a god's soldier.
Mhm.
They are their force comes from their god, but Steven's god dies on the longest day. So a lot of the book is going back and forth with what he can do now that he doesn't have this god to stand behind, or is like keeping him worthy, basically. And then there's also Grace, which Paladin's great, haha, funny.
Super
Um,
cute.
it is super cute. It's this lady that's like a perfumer that was in a bad relationship, so she also is kind of like on the broken spectrum. And then they meet in this kind of sketchy alleyway. Funny moment.
It is, yeah.
But it's not even just that. It's the world building that this is about by Ursula Vernon, who is T. Kingfisher. She changed her pen name because
Mm,
she also writes children. Um,
yes.
so to distinguish the two. But yeah, so this murderer that's out there that is like decapitating these bodies. And like they only find I think it's just the heads that they find. So like it's this weird situation that everybody's trying to figure out. She's a perfumer, so she has to like make ends meet. It's just very like I like creative and unique, and I love every sort of like character she came up with, like race, all of those things. It's just
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah.
I know you haven't gotten all the way through it, so I can't like, you know.
I know. It's really good. Like I can tell, and I like Fisher. She's fun. Just the way she's really good at like she's funny. Like her writing, she puts so many. She's like hilarious. Like I'm reading, and she has me. She's another one of those that just I'm laughing. Like I'm laughing. She just puts these little like I don't know. She's witty, I guess, because her writing is great.
Yeah.
Like yeah, and you kind of laugh, and same thing with the Hollow Places. There were so many times in it I'm like laughing, and I mean it was a crazy situation, but she's just really good at writing. She's
She
amazing.
is, and it's like
Yeah,
descriptive, but not to the well. I don't mind like when books are like overly descriptive, but I can see why like some people don't. But it's
yeah.
descriptive
I'm
in
not
a
a fan.
way
But she's not
that
like that.
yeah, you
Mm-mm.
get the point, but like we can move on kind of
Yeah,
situation.
exactly. Yeah.
So that is near and dear to my heart because it definitely rekindled some of my like reading obsession, and it
Mm-hmm.
did quickly get into an obsession because like I've read from June to December I read 60 books. But that's not like I'm not gonna continue to get those sure because like that was a lot. My next one,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you will ever read. Such a nerd. So I'm like really into Norse mythology too.
Yes.
So but so The Witch's Heart by Genevieve Gornitek. I believe she is actually like Scandinavian.
Well, that makes it authentic.
Yeah, authentic. But basically, it's about Angrboda, who is Loki's wife. She's a giant. So she's a witch, flees to a forest after being burned alive by Odin because she wouldn't give him the information that he wanted. A lot of Norse mythology is Odin's a dick. Uh,
Yeah.
but then she's found by a man who reveals himself to be Loki. They fall in love. They have 3 children, which, if you know anything about Norse mythology, you know who their children are and what they end up doing. But I won't ruin it in case anybody doesn't know. And this is like the first
Like introduction
toe
to
dip.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like I loved seeing it from the viewpoint of somebody that's kind of outside of Norse mythology because we don't really know a whole lot of Angrboda. She pops up twice in like the historical text. So the world building and the fact that she brought this woman to life was just I loved it. And there's like this really cute twist at the end and I loved it.
A question
It
about
was a
that.
good, yeah.
So is that a book that like okay, so I know nothing about, other than like Krampus. I just don't know a whole lot. So which you gifted me and it was great. Thank you, by the
Yeah,
way.
you're very
I
welcome.
almost put
Merry
that one on
Christmas.
my list. It's very, very up there. Very
Oh,
up there.
I
It was
love
good.
Krampus.
It was a great book. We'll talk about that another time. So now this book, would I enjoy it? Like, is it something you should really like know a little bit more about Norse mythology before getting into? Or is it something like if you have no idea you can get into? Or do you have recommendations of like what you should read to enjoy that a little bit more?
No, I think it's definitely something that like you don't need any of the pre history to get into because she does go through like explaining who everybody is and to the fact that like it's not necessarily like oh this is the god of whatever. It's more like oh I know him and he's a jerk basically.
Yeah. So you don't need a lot of like historic knowledge
No.
on Norse mythology in order
And
to
I
read that
almost
completely.
think it would be better if you didn't. Then you get to know this side of it instead of
Okay.
like, oh, this is this person. I know this because I read the Havamal or whatever.
Right.
I think as a standalone like love story, it's very nice. And I think actually not knowing who her children are makes the ending so much better. So I would recommend it to like literally anyone.
Yeah, because I might be interested.
The way she writes is very beautiful and like again it's very like forest core and like fantasy like
Yeah.
she's the mother of wolves type of situation which
See, that stuff sounds good though.
yeah I
I
like
like that.
I'm a sucker for like wolves and ravens all
Yeah.
those like dark forest motif for sure.
Right. Yeah. Living in Los Angeles.
We
Okay.
have a trail behind us, and
I'm
I
in the middle of
found,
the desert, and I
yeah.
love, mountains and trees, and I'm out here with the cactus,
Oh
so
yeah,
it's
that's
cool.
definitely like my preferred aesthetic forest,
Yeah.
coming from the Black
Like the
Hills, but
Pacific Northwest is like
yeah, absolutely.
ideal, but here I am. No, I
Yeah.
like Arizona too.
Well, of
Anyways.
course.
But
And
yeah,
like,
no, it's
yeah, absolutely. Like, I love every minute of it.
mhm.
But like, I don't think you have to be as far into Norse mythology as I am to enjoy it either.
Okay, cool. It does sound good. It sounds really good actually. I never heard of it. So well, now how did you hear about that one?
I think again it was TikTok.
Of course.
um,
Dude, I love it for that though. I do.
Absolutely. And then like you can literally put anything in the search bar and it'll give you like 10 recommendations like absolutely, thank you in my Kindle Unlimited.
Yeah. And I
This is
like
not
putting in, like, if you think you're gonna like a book, like I'm gonna do this when we're done. I'm gonna go to the Witch's Heart and put her name and then put aesthetic, and then there'll be videos that'll pop up that like
Mhm.
show little like clips of like what kind of vibe it is, and I'm like, okay, yes, like that will convince me
Yeah, oh
to read
yeah.
anything if it's good enough, you know?
Go to Pinterest and look up.
Yeah, boards and oh my
Yeah,
god. Okay,
absolutely. I'm
that's
that type.
awesome.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
Going from like romance over to more of like a horror situation. The third one on my list is The Hollow Places, which you also read.
Oh, it's so good. So
The
good.
synopsis is that Kara, her uncle calls her Carrot, is a freshly divorced woman who moves in with her eccentric uncle who owns this museum of wonders, which is just like a trinket shop, basically. Like there's like
Mhm.
these oddities and curiosities. Like there's a beaver and there's a deer head that is in there for important role. He goes to get surgery because he's an old man. So she's left in charge of the shop. She ends up finding a literal hole in the wall, and she decides to investigate it with the barista next door. And it turns out to be this Lovecraftian bus center, basically. Like all these little bunkers are like possible doors to another world. It's very Lovecraftian, but it's very like there is moments where I was like, oh, and I had to like sit down the book down and process and like wait
Mhm.
until I was ready to continue the story.
Yes.
But it's very like again, Kingfisher, this is the second time she's on my list. Very unique, very creative. Her storytelling is just beautiful, like
Mhm.
it flows well. I loved it.
Oh, she's so good. I love that movie. That movie. See, it was like a movie in my brain. I love that book too. It was so she's oh my god, it's funny too. It's she just writes so well things in it that are just like wow. And the way she describes things, I really could
Oh,
visualize it. I visualized
yeah.
it almost too well on some of it because some of it is a little freaky, but I could
Like the
just
man
the
they
way
meet. Yeah.
yes, yeah, oh my god, yeah.
Mm,
But she just has a way with like so Kara and Simon's like banter
Oh,
throughout the
yeah.
book was just so good, and you just get this like you feel like you really know them, and like I don't know, I just love the way she writes her characters. She's great at it because some people like they just
They're
don't they
very
can't do it
flat.
like her.
Yeah.
Yeah, almost no, and like there's so much personality with her characters, and I think that's like and then with that book especially, oh, they had so much personality, and it was just great. It was solid book, man, solid.
Solid. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, so good.
So my next one is very TikTok influenced because every single TikTok that I was sent or like I would see on Book Talk, it had this book in the background, and it's still in the background of like most of them.
Yep.
It's Slewfoot by Brahm, and again, I love very unique stories, very like unique storytelling. Have you read this one yet?
I have not.
Oh, okay.
But I want to because I like his writing and I like how you get art with it.
Yes, the art is like
I love the
almost
art.
like
It's
a
so
special.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah. You get a little treat.
a little something
His
extra.
Krampus, I got to that and I'm like, oh, there's like illustrations and they were beautiful. And he does the
Beautiful.
drawing as well, right? It's the author and the artist, right?
Yeah, so he actually does. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Diablo, the video game.
Mhm. Oh,
He
I
has
know about
done
it.
the artwork of that, as obviously.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he has like a history of doing artwork for like video games. I think he did
Oh,
some for like
wow.
D&D as well. So yeah, I
Okay.
think he did some for WoW, if I'm not mistaken. World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Anyway.
Sorry, go ahead. Go on.
No. So Slewfoot is about Abatha, who is a widowed colonial woman who is trying to save her farm because it obviously, as a woman in colonial America, you don't get anything. So she has to keep up the farm, and then also Slewfoot is this spirit that ends up being kind of on her farm and often mistaken for, the devil because we are talking about Puritan America. But the payoff for it was so good. Like, she gets like crapped on a lot, obviously. Again,
Mm-hmm.
Puritan America as a woman. But the ending just made it all so worth it. I kind of, in your masked men situation, I kind of have a thing for Brahms antlered men because I fell in love with what, like, as a creature because he just was so, like, I don't know, perfect, I guess. But again, I really love the way Brahm writes. It's never like, and then this happened, and then this happened. It's very like eloquent, and storytelling is beautiful. The world building, and you get to see
Nice.
what he means, obviously, with the picture.
Yes.
Which
Yes.
is
Oh, that was so awesome.
something interesting that we have had discussions about before. Is that I don't always get that like movie in my head situation that like
I
most
know, it's
people
so
do.
weird. Yes.
Like I can like generally get like a movie, but not like in-depth detail. So having like a picture to refer back to is just
Yeah.
wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
On that note, my fifth one is also by Brahm because I
Oh,
went through
you had a moment.
I like once I found an author, I kind of just eat up
Hyperfixation.
their
Yeah.
work because like, oh, this one was so good. I'm looking for that feeling again type of
Right.
situation.
Right.
Which is kind of why I've had a lull in March is because I've kind of not had that spark. But
Yeah.
we'll get to that. The next one is Lost Gods by Brahm also. This one is about spoiler, the main character dies, Chet. He has
Mm-hmm.
to go to Purgatory to find a key to restore basically Purgatory. Like Purgatory is just a mess. Like everybody's fighting everybody. Like it used to be much better than it is now. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of the gods are being murdered for one reason or another. And it just like it checked all of my checks. Like Southern horror, love it. Have like a weird pagan woman in it. Check. Like hell and gods. Absolutely. Like I was in. And then again, you get the pictures that or paintings that he painted along with it are just so like there's I'm not gonna ruin it, but like there's these two charred characters, like they're just like black and they're just
Mm-hmm.
the creepiest little thing. And like once you read the passage of like who they are, you're like, oh no.
Oh
But
man.
and I was actually reading this when it came out for Christmas
Oh.
on the drive over, and there's literal times that I like
Oh.
gasped. And if you, my husband absolutely hates driving, and I like,
Oh
he's like,
yes.
what's wrong? What's wrong? What did you do? I'm like, no. And then I would explain it to him, and he'd be like, why'd you gasp? I'm like, please,
Leave me
experience this
alone.
with me.
I know, right? Did you hear what I just said?
You're right.
That's funny. So that sounds actually really good too. I really do like Brahm, and I love that you get the illustrations. So one question before we move on: did you buy
Yeah.
those physical copies?
I was gifted Lost Cause as a copy, so I do have that.
Okay.
Slewfoot is on my I know. I'm probably gonna like actually get the physical copy at some
Yeah.
point. Um
He gets you with his artwork
oh,
because of course
absolutely.
you want it. Because
Well,
I
and
have.
like I think
Oh,
at
go
one
ahead.
point at some point my actual bookshelf is just going to be my favorite books and like
That's a good idea. They're all going to be there
aesthetic.
then. Yeah.
Well, definitely the Harry Potter books, but I want like, the pretty covers, not just the boring 90 covers.
Right. Right.
Lord of the Rings is gonna be on there. Probably House of Leaves. Hint, hint.
I
But
will
definitely for
one
sure
day.
get like a physical copy of
Yeah.
Slewfoot because it's just beautiful.
Yeah, I recommend if you're going to read any of Brahm, just go ahead and get that physical copy just to have the
Yeah,
art because it's
absolutely.
beautiful.
Oh, I do have the physical copy of Krampus, which we both
Yes.
read. Yeah, that was
Yes, it was
our
so good.
I don't think Belen ever read it, but you and your mom did, so that
Yes,
counts.
and it was really good. It was so good. I loved it. It
I
was
loved
good.
it too. Yeah.
It was a fun read. Pictures were great. And you know, a lot of what the pictures it's kind of how I pictured a lot of the characters, which was really funny. I'm like, "Oh, good. That's how I saw them." Because that's what kind of sucks about movies sometimes is like you had this vision in your brain and then you're watching the movie and you're like,
Oh,
like it's not
this guy?
really. So yeah, his art was perfect. So yeah. So TBR, do you have a list? Which I know you do.
I
And
do.
and has Book Talk had influence on your TBR?
Yes, my list is also like yours, where like I have Nothing But Blackened Teeth. I have Brother.
Mhm.
I have I don't think Stolen Tongues was on yours, but it's on mine. But mine is also like it's on my spreadsheet. I don't like upcoming series too, as far as like I don't want to forget that I need to go back to read certain books because like
Right.
upcoming I have a House with Good Bones by Ting Kingfisher. I believe that just came out, so that
Ooh.
is probably going to be in our next episode for sure.
Yes. I'll read it. You want to read it in April?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll read it. I'll get it. I'll order it
Okay.
today. All right. And we'll read it and then we'll talk about it. It'll be
Then
fun.
we'll talk
Yes.
about it. Yeah,
Yeah.
because T. Kingfisher again is like
Oh, I love her. I do
I
love her
know,
work.
me
I
too.
do. Yeah. Sorry.
And I do have like 3 different to be read lists. I have the one on Goodreads, which is like because it's instantly access to your Kindle. So like if I'm like, oh, I want to read that, I just kind of get it to the Goodreads.
Right.
Then I have my spreadsheet, which is to like keep track of upcoming series
You're
mostly.
so cute with your
And then
I love it.
and then I have an Amazon list for like if nobody knows what to give me, I'm like,
Go
here's
here.
my Amazon list. Yeah.
Dear Santa.
Right. Which is
That's
actually
so
like
cute.
what like in my March reading, I actually read a book that was gifted to me because it was on that list. So thank
I'm
you.
gonna need to look at that list. I'm gonna need that way I know what to do for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I don't even remember what did I get you?
You got me a witchcraft kit.
Oh yeah, that was
And
cool though.
that was really fun things.
I thought so.
And it being the first of the month, gotta blow
Yep.
in your cinnamon and
I know,
clean your
and
door.
I didn't do the things I was supposed to do.
No,
Horrible.
well, I don't know. I think
I
it
did
wouldn't
make
be as
moon
fun.
water, which was super fun. That's coming again soon. I like
It
the moon
sure
water.
is.
Yeah, it's fun. Sorry. Okay.
I know we know obviously by now that most of my reading comes from Kindle Unlimited.
Mhm.
It's just more convenient, easier to lug around from work to home. You can if I come up with like a book I want to read, it's easy to just download it instead of ordering it, waiting it for it to get shipped. I think
Right.
they probably ruined like my dopamine levels for some reason because like it's instant access. Like
Right. No, yeah. No, I hear you. By the time you get
yeah,
it, you're like, I already started something else. So
right, absolutely.
yeah. I guess getting a physical copy when it's like Brahm or something that's like near and dear to your heart, I think is a little different for
Yeah.
like yeah. Yeah, I
I
can
did
see
go
that.
to the bookstore though, like a couple
I
weeks
saw
ago.
you sent me a
Yeah.
picture. I was so proud of I'm like, look at
Thank you.
her go. Just kidding.
It's because the cover match. I had to get the second one.
That was cool. You showed me a picture of that. That was
Yeah,
cool.
but I haven't read it. Maybe next month.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Which I mean, my March reading has been so slow. But let's go over what you've read in March.
So and I all the books that were on my list, I have read.
Oh, your earlier list. Okay.
Yeah. And I've also read the ones that I didn't put on my list, but I did read was like I read Tender is the Flesh, and I didn't really particularly like the way it was written, and I will say that I think that was March. I will say that it's translated, so I think
Oh, yeah.
and I think that because it's very like then this happened, then I did this.
Yeah,
And
I'm
we
not
did
the
this,
biggest
and I'm
fan
like,
of.
and I think maybe that's because it was translated. I really do think that. It wasn't completely like awful. It was gruesome, of course. It's about meat becomes you can't eat it, you'll die if you eat like cow, pig, whatever animal meat. And so they start farming humans.
How fun.
and everyone becomes cannibals and they eat people. But you can't call them people. But anyways, this is this whole thing. But it's so obviously it's gruesome and gross. But that's not what bothered me about it. I mean, it's just the way it was written, and I do think that's because it was translated and it was just very choppy and like then this, then this, then this, then this, and I'm like, oh, this. It was kind of boring almost because for me it got very good reviews. A lot of people do like it. It was a book talk find, of course, and I just it just wasn't for me. And I've really been stuck on my Devil's Night series, so I've been kind of on that all of March. So my list for March is
just as dismal as mine.
yeah, it's very short. Like I said, I started Paladin's Grace and I really did like it. Love it. I got to a really good part too, and then I got my other book in the mail, my last two of the series, and I'm like, ugh. And I'm like, you know what? Let me just stop here. Let me hurry up and knock these 900 pages altogether out of the way.
Yeah, just real quick.
I'm already like 75% done, so I'll be done within the next few days, I'm sure. And then I'm not gonna pick up where I left off in Paladin's Grace. I'm gonna go ahead and start over. I did love the beginning of it, so I don't mind reading it again. So
yeah, absolutely.
It'll be good to just catch back up. Don't want to really anything I may not have picked up on because there's all kinds of little things that she puts in there that you don't want to miss. So it's fun.
It's definitely
she's fun to read.
Something that even I could probably go back and read again and
catch something.
Yeah,
I like that about her too. It's again, I noticed like a lot. Like I love a book that's mindless reading. I'm not gonna lie, but I noticed like a lot of your favorites, like they're deep and like you really gotta pay attention to what you're reading. Like not mindless reading. That are your favorites anyways. I know you like romance and like blah, but Paladin, T. Kingfisher, Brom, like all of that, Chuck, they're all very detailed and you can miss things, not to where it'll confuse you, but you don't want to miss the little things in these books with their writings. You want all that. You want it all because they're just so good. So anyways, so yeah, that's pretty much. So my list isn't that great for March, unfortunately.
Okay. I only read 4 books, which is like down by like I used to read like 10 books a month, and now I'm like, oh, I can't get over the like slump.
Yeah, you have like a hangover.
Yeah. So I read River of Shadows by Karina Hale, and then also the follow-up of that, Crown of Crimson.
Yes.
It finished Mythology, which again, sucker for mythology. So love anything that has like weird gods. I don't know what that is. We'll psychoanalyze that later. And like I used to be the biggest him fan. So like the main character I just kept thinking was Villa Velo in my head. So like I had to get through it. Yeah.
Yes.
She is like, she's half Finnish. She goes to Finland for your funeral for her dad. She gets stuck in the underworld and kind of bargains her life for her dad's, and then gets stuck with the god of dead, who is Tuoni. I think the world building made sense. Like the spice level was just enough. Like I love a consenting adult relationship. That's always a plus for me. Wouldn't say that it's like, I would say 4 out of 5 on the star scale, because I don't necessarily care too much about like how badass the female character thinks she is, I guess. Like I'm not the biggest fan of like Seat, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
And like it's fine. Like I'm all for like the self-care, self-love movement. It's just like there's a fine line in my mind. Yeah. Again, second book follows the first one. Also, both of those books are on Kindle Unlimited in case anybody cares about that. There was a spice moment in the second book that wasn't necessarily my yum, but like I'm not gonna yuck anybody's yum, but yuck. No, I'm just kidding. I don't fault the book for that. Like, that's definitely somebody's thing. It's just not my thing. I also read For the Wolf by Hannah Witten, which was a physical copy. This is my first physical copy sent Lost Gods, and it was gifted to me by my very best friend Ashley for Christmas, and I just got around to reading it. It's fine. But the tagline is that like the first daughter is for the crown, the second daughter is for the wolf, and it's like this weird fantasy where the Wilderwood is like magical and like is sentient and is trying to survive itself. The wolf is like protector of the Wilderwood, and like it gets into like blood magic and all the fun
Ooh.
things. I liked it. Some of the magic was a little like it could have been built up more, like she could have like flushed it out, but I'm not entirely sure if that was done on purpose or not because the female main character is very like in the dark on a lot of things, like as far as like how the world actually works. So I don't know
Mhm.
if it's like to keep us also in the dark or the spice level was, I think it was more of like an herb, not necessarily like spicy, and it definitely happens at the very very end, so like it's a slow burn. There is a second book, one that I went to go and get, haven't gotten around to actually reading it yet, and I don't know like so the first book is about the second daughter and the second book is about the first daughter, so like I always have a weird transition
Mhm.
block with like, oh, I just want this story to continue, but then it's sister, so now I have to like prepare myself for the sister story type of situation.
Right. How many books are supposed to be in the series, or is it just those two? Do you know?
I think it's just the two.
That sounds pretty interesting.
It was on my to be read for the longest time because the cover is just beautiful and obviously it kind of is like a Little Red Riding Hood retelling a little bit. So
Mhm.
she's wearing like a red hood and it just like it's like picking out a wine based on the label
Right,
type of
right,
situation where like I was very like taken by the cover and it turned
right.
out to be a pretty good book. I would recommend it.
It sounds interesting. It does.
Yeah, and like again, I'm very much like a fantasy love anything forced. So like
Yeah.
it kind of suckered me into it.
Oh yeah.
And then so I'm currently reading.
Oh.
It's called Pucking Around. It's by Emily Wraith. It is a hockey why choose book.
I need to read it. Where?
It is pure smut. Like, there's no going around it. And like, so again, we're gonna discuss like shared interests, which Stephanie and I love hockey.
Everything about it.
Everything about it, especially the boys. But our fantasy hockey league just ended. And I was feeling a little, starstruck and because it was over. So I wanted to like continue that like hockey feeling going into the playoffs. So but it's so like fantasy might be over, but fantasy is never over.
Never over.
Oh my god. But like I don't know. It's so I guess okay, so
It's
female
about
main
you and
character-
Austin Matthews, right?
Well, yeah, my
Yeah.
husband, Austin Matthews, who is your brother. No. It's about this she's a personal trainer but also an MD, which I don't know how that works out, but that is in it's not even a throuple, it's like a quadruple. Like she's in a relationship with the defenseman, Jake, the equipment manager, Caleb, and the goalie, and he's Finnish, so I can't pronounce his name. But like
Hey.
there and like again for a why choose, I shouldn't be like so against like group situations. And I'm
Right.
not the biggest fan of like that. Like
MMMF.
yeah, let's just take our turns, right? Like that's
Right.
more of my
So it's not a one at a time
No, it's
situation.
definitely
Oh, okay.
a two or more at a time situation.
Just kidding.
And,
Okay.
yeah.
All
And
right,
like
Rachel.
they all have very different personalities. So, and again, like I'm not the biggest fan of like when a woman is like, I'm so hot all the time and I have tats.
Oh
and-
yes.
Yeah, but it's fun.
Yes.
It's a fun read.
Oh yeah,
like,
for sure. For sure.
and
For
like
sure.
my favorite part, because like I don't know like how again I don't know how much people know about hockey, but hockey players and fans are like the most superstitious people I've ever met. And there's a moment in they're flying to another city to play, and she ends up sitting next to the goalie, and then they win that game, so she has to sit next to him
Next
for
to
the
the goalie.
rest. Yeah.
Yeah, I seen where it was going.
So like it's like the forced proximity, whatever. But it's fun.
Fun.
But it's not, and like it's a defenseman and not like a center, which Austin Matthews is. So like, You know, it really took me out of it. No, I'm just kidding. It was fun.
You finished it then?
I'm like 3/4 of the way through.
Okay, but it's pretty fun.
Yeah, it's a fun read. Like, I wouldn't
Yeah.
go out of my way to like recommend it to anybody, but you know, if you like hockey and like you don't mind group situation, yeah, go for it.
Cool.
Yeah.
This keeps popping up on TikTok, and I think
Oh,
it's 'cause,
yeah.
like all the hockey. So, and she's written, she's written a couple books, I think, too, maybe.
Yeah,
that I know of that are like centered around hockey, and I'm like, oh. And then I saw you were reading it, and I'm like, I'm gonna have to ask Becky.
The story starts with a novella first, and then get into the
okay.
story. But like, I didn't read it, but
Yeah,
I
probably
kind
not
of wish I
necessary.
would have at this point.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Because like, it's just Rachel
It's gonna
and Jake. So like, I feel like that would have been like more of like my
Oh.
style instead of like
all this mess.
all these boys. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is funny too, because like I keep running into like Finnish stuff. So like the Kelava was part of this book too for some reason.
You told me that. I'm
Yeah.
like, what?
I was like,
is going on?
okay. But yeah,
That's still fun though that it was in there.
it is fun. And like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, it's not completely out of place considering like a lot of your players like in hockey or there's a lot of
Finnish,
Scandinavian whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's fun.
Prefer my American boy though. Tell you what.
Guess where he's from?
I'm gonna go with Scottsdale, Arizona.
I live so close to there.
I
So
know.
weird.
I think
Yes.
that's about it for us.
Yep, that's
All
it.
right.
We'll both be reading T. Kingfisher's. Say it again. What are we reading in April?
A House with Good Bones.
That's it.
It is Southern Gothic horror. I haven't read a whole lot about it because I sometimes do just like to go in blind, but it being
a Southern Gothic horror.
Yes.
Oh, I hope it's like a New Orleans like
my box
voodoo vibe. Yes.
Yeah,
that would be beautiful. Yeah, well, I mean, she's great. She's great. I'll love it. I know I will. So I'm gonna read that one, and then we'll talk about it next time together, and it'll be super fun. So no, I will not text you about it.
No.
Okay.
We'll keep
I'm gonna
notes.
tell you. I'm gonna tell you when I get it, and then we'll take notes, and then
tell me when
you're
done. Yeah,
I will. How exciting!
Very exciting. And then we'll have to like create like a Facebook and an Instagram in case like anybody actually cares. But if you have any questions, recommendations, critiques, you can send them there. And of course, if you liked anything that we did today, you can feel free to share with whoever. Thank you.
Thank you.